This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world, and all you voters out there. Your vote counts. Use it.
Actually, John is saying that because we are recording this program in advance. This program is going to be played for 2 weeks because John will be on a very special assignment before the election. So this is our last opportunity to urge you to get out and vote before the election.
Right, exactly. Barring any untoward developments.
That's true.
So, okay, speaking of untoward developments, Jim Benerofe, lay the headlines on us.
And here are this week's headlines. Library Foundation holds 21st Annual Gala. Best-selling author Frank Bruni worries that today's students are losing the thirst for learning that the White Plains Library gave to him. We'll have another episode of Hillary and Friends and Trump Today, the wrap of another scary week. The Journal newsroom says goodbye to reporters who have been news household words for decades. White Plains said to lead cities in New York State with the most fines per capita. 1 million wait to take their oath of citizenship and will not vote in the presidential election. We will tell you why. The Pet Food Pantry celebrates its 5th anniversary. We'll have a video report. Robert Hoover, World War II fighter pilot, POW, test pilot. The pilot passes away at 94. The Thomas Slater Center is hoping you will contribute to Haiti Hurricane Matthew relief effort. Thompson's cider mill is celebrating its 40th anniversary as autumn closes in.
And the election is closing in on us.
John, I have to ask, Jim, were those headlines rigged?
I don't know.
I rig them every week. I rig them up.
I deny there's been any rigging.
This is a no-rig show, just believe the truth and nothing but the truth and what we think is the truth.
Right.
Boy, there are a lot of people who do that. They tell you what they think is the truth. Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go to the White Plains Week Rollo Newsreel March of Time for October 28th, 2016. And there is Diane Tabachman on the right, the president of the White Plains Library Foundation, with Brian Kenny, the library director. And Jim, why don't you tell us all about this big gala?
Saturday night was really quite interesting. There were, I would say, close to 200, maybe a little over 200 people. And Frank Bruni was an extremely entertaining speaker. And the event was quite successful. We don't know the financial returns yet, but I think it did rather well.
Well, that picture does not look like the library. Where was it held this year?
Oh,
It was
it was
at
held
Colomie.
at Colomie.
Because the library is under construction.
Yes,
To
they're-
transform it into the hub.
The first floor is
Yes.
going to be called the hub.
Right. And this was one of the main focuses of the evening.
All right,
And
so the author has ties to White Plains. I mean, it's not just so this guy wrote a book and they decided to bring him in because he wrote a
No,
book.
Frank Bruni has written several books. This one is name.
where you were going.
Where you are going is not who you will be.
And the book, he draws on his experience that he became a food editor
At the New York Times.
At the New York Times, and he was going to do a course on food writing at a college in New Jersey. And one of the telling anecdotes that he gave during his talk was that there was such a demand to be in that class that he was going to teach that he staged a contest, and they would write an essay as to why they wanted to be in the class. And he was so impressed with it and what was written that he picked them. And then when he taught the course, he found their writing was terrible.
Yeah,
you know,
that's the story that you hear, that graduates from high schools these days cannot read or write.
He wasn't so much talking about that.
They're good at.
He was talking about the fact that parents and kids aim for getting into the best schools, and they do everything that they have to do to get in. Once they get in, they don't necessarily follow through with the same gusto.
They know how to rig the admissions process, the students and themselves, right?
But you had said he was sort of reminiscing about the things that he managed to pick up in White Plains, specifically at the library while growing up.
Stimulated his curiosity, which is what we are told libraries do. And here is a good example of it.
Yes.
But I mean, he also said the library is quite a respite, you know, from the pressures of his life. Was it not? He did say that, I believe.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, well, we do see that the White Plains Library is trying to make moves to make it itself more relevant in the new digital age that we are in. I mean, you know, the days of going into the stacks, you know, and going through a bunch of cards to try to find something in a library are basically long gone.
Yeah, I don't think they use cards
libraries
anymore.
do have to reinvent themselves
Yes.
in the internet age.
I'm learning to read, for example.
And they're doing very successful. The library is doing better than it's ever done.
Okay, so
Big increase in attendance.
Yeah.
so this was the 21st gala for the Library Foundation.
Yes.
And they had been offered a $1 million.
They got an anonymous gift of $1 million towards this. And one of the requirements was that the city match that money, which has been done, and that the foundation itself needed to raise $500,000.
Mm-hmm. So are they on the way to reaching that goal at this point?
We're up to, and don't hold me to this, I think we're up to around $300,000 or $400,000.
Oh, so it's getting closer.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so if,
they'll definitely make it.
Yeah. So let's keep those nickels and dimes coming in, folks.
Yeah, you know, John, there was another fundraiser this week here in White Plains, and it was the Hudson Valley Pet Food Pantry. They held their 6th annual fundraiser. It was Monday, October 24th.
The event took place at the Women's Club CV Rich Mansion on Ridgeway in White Plains and included dinner and a silent auction. The Pet Food Pantry is a tax-exempt nonprofit which was founded in White Plains but serves clients from many other communities in the Hudson Valley area. It helps people facing financial or other hardships keep their pets at home instead of having to give them up to a shelter or even abandon them on the streets. Some clients are senior citizens on minimal fixed incomes or people who have lost their jobs and are currently having trouble making ends meet. Others may be disabled or are veterans with service dogs. Clients must meet government standards to qualify for the aid. At the moment, the Pet Food Pantry cannot expand to take on new clients unless it finds new funding. It operates from rented space at the Ridgeview Congregational Church in White Plains. Everyone who helps at the Pet Food Pantry volunteers. There is no paid staff. All money raised goes directly to supporting the work of the pantry. Susan Katz, the executive director, gave an update on the number of clients and pets currently helped each month.
Volunteers at the pantry, they don't just go to the pantry. They do inventory. As a nonprofit organization, we have to inventory every item that comes into the pantry and every item that goes out of the pantry. So our volunteers there do inventory. They pack 282 bags of food, specifically designed for what our clients' pets eat. And we are now feeding 757 animals a month. So that's a whole.
And you can visit their website at www.hvpetfoodpantry.org.
All right. Well, thank you, and the animals thank you. Right. Woof, thank you. Right, exactly. We hoped to have a guest, but he wanted too much, to appear in the program.
Well, yeah, he has a very good agent.
Yes, the animals have better agents than I do, I got to tell you. Now, let's go to the shocker of the week. This is apropos of our reading problem, okay?
Well, it's apropos of the changes in the media landscape in this
That's
country.
right. The Journal of News announced Monday that they have ended their relationships with Phil Reisman, the longtime news columnist who's been with them for 40 years, and the sports columnist Rick Carpiniello, who's a great hockey writer, and he wrote like hockey is. He is direct, and really gave you the flavor of the game. His columns sounded like hockey, and Mr. Reisman had a great way of saying the hardest hitting things in a very humorous manner, which sort of softened the blows.
A lot of politics, a lot of inside stuff.
Yes.
How things work.
And of course, the other sports writer, Chad Jennings, who was the Yankee baseball beat writer.
Well, now they laid off 5 reporters in all in this round. Is that correct?
That's right.
And what has happened is that the Journal News here in Westchester really reflects what's been going on in the news media in general. Newspapers have been seeing their circulations cut way back. They have tried to adapt to the internet world and create online editions. In some cases, they've been somewhat successful. The New York Times, for example, claims now to have more than 1 million digital subscribers. We've seen a trend toward national newspapers with USA Today. We see the Wall Street Journal trying to remake itself into somewhat of a national newspaper, which is one of the goals of Rupert Murdoch when he took over the Wall Street Journal.
It's not the Wall Street Journal I remember.
And here in Westchester on a local level, we have seen the Journal News circulation shrink. I mean, back in the old days, the Gannett papers, when they had the special editions for Yonkers and Mount Vernon, White Plains had its own paper, the Reporter Dispatch. The overall circulation has gone from maybe 250,000 back in the heyday down to the latest circulation figures we saw, 44,000, which is just a shadow of its former self as they try to shift into the digital age. And part of that shifting has been downsizing the staffs. And it's not just the Journal News.
Well, if you're not making the revenue, you can't pay your staff.
Well, right. Jim, we were talking before, and you said you had some numbers just in doing a weekly newspaper, the minimum staff that you needed.
10 people, and You know, let's say if everybody gets $35,000 a year, which is not much of a salary,
That's a hefty payroll.
you're talking about
Yeah.
350,000.
And that's even without the benefits and insurance and the taxes you have to pay and all of those things.
Right.
So, you know, we see not only the media under attack from within because of the change in the landscape, change in patterns from which people get their news, but also politically, the media has been attacked mercilessly this year in the presidential campaign.
Unmercilessly, but one factor I also have to say is accountable to the circulation is when you do one paper for 2 counties, you're not pleasing anybody. You know,
You're referring to the Journal News putting out one issue now, which covers Westchester and Rockland and maybe the northern Westchester and who knows where else.
The coverage is so weighted towards accidents and action happening over in Rockland County.
You know, we see this kind of consolidation in television too, where you know News 12 is now in the throes of closing down the bulk of its operation in Yonkers, just leaving a couple of reporters and some support people in Yonkers, and originating the newscasts from Long Island, and their Connecticut operation, News 12 Connecticut, will start originating its newscasts from New Jersey.
It makes so much sense, covering Connecticut from New Jersey. I mean, it's like covering Russia from Alaska. You know, give me a break. I mean, this decision making.
Well, you know, Sarah Palin could see Russia from her house in Alaska.
Yes,
Yes,
it's true.
Well, now, I know you've all been waiting for the fastest 5 minutes in television, where a week's worth of insanity is encapsulated on Hillary and Friends and Trump Today. Peter.
Well, as we said in the beginning, John, this is the last opportunity for us to speak about the presidential campaign. Do vote early and often. Oh, wait a minute, you can't do that. That's voter fraud.
That's rigging.
That's rigging.
Yes.
Right.
It's playing with the rigging.
So on
Well,
Thursday,
you can vote early, but not often.
On Thursday, speaking in Toledo, Ohio, Donald Trump suggested that it's time to just cancel the election and make him president. He said, quote, "We should just cancel the election and just give it to Trump, right?" He said. And of
Huge
course,
roar.
Of course, the crowd said right. So
I'm surprised they didn't say Heil.
WikiLeaks dropped some more emails on the campaign this week. One contained a memo from a fellow named Doug Band, who was a longtime confidant and aide of Bill Clinton. And this memo essentially defended Band's work for the Clinton Foundation and for Clinton personally. But what it did, it exposed the fact that while Mr. Band was building up his consulting firm, he also was booking Bill Clinton for major speeches, and many of the speeches for which Bill Clinton was paid handsomely were given to foundations, foreign donors, individuals, institutions which had donated money to the Clinton Foundation.
Well, nothing wrong with that, is there?
As far as we know, Hillary Clinton was not implicated in this in any way, and there was nothing in this to indicate that she or the State Department did anything that they shouldn't have done while she was the Secretary of State. One of the donors, called Laureate International Universities, a for-profit education institution based in Baltimore, was paying Bill Clinton $3.5 million a year to serve as its honorary chairman and to provide advice.
Now, that's a nice consultancy, isn't it?
Indeed it is. I'd be happy to provide advice, and I wouldn't charge anything near that. Of
What
course,
would you charge, right?
the Trump campaign latched on to this, as did other Republicans. But again, there was nothing in the WikiLeaks emails that showed any gross irregularity or any criminality or involvement of Mrs. Clinton.
Wait a minute. I thought Ecuador had said WikiLeaks could not go on the internet from the Ecuadorian agency, and boom, the next day this stuff comes out. It's very interesting. You know.
Don't know.
No, we don't know.
Don't know. It is said by the U.S. government that they have evidence that all of these emails that WikiLeaks has been leaking were hacked by the Russians and then turned over to WikiLeaks. CNN's Dana Bash interviewed Donald Trump and asked him about where and how he is spending his final days as a candidate. Rather than answer the question, the Republican candidate said to Ms. Bash, "That's a very rude question."
It's sort of like the pot calling the kettle black, right?
This was done at a ribbon cutting of his new hotel in Washington. And the thrust of the question was, why are you taking time off the campaign trail as the election is looming to open up a hotel rather than being out campaigning? And Trump did not like the idea of his schedule being questioned. There is some confusion in Texas because of some posts on social media which claim that a person went to vote in early voting and voted for Donald Trump, but the machine flipped those votes to register votes for Hillary Clinton. Now, Texas officials say that couldn't happen and didn't happen, but nonetheless, this has been creating quite a storm on social media in Texas. In Georgia, they actually did remove a voting machine after a complaint that someone who voted for Hillary Clinton found that the machine registered those votes for Donald Trump.
Wow.
That was a trade-off for what went on in Texas.
It's a trade-off, right?
It's a trade-off, yes. But yet, can these things happen? Yes, there can be irregularities. There can be problems with voting machines. If you remember back even in using the old-fashioned, the big voting
Hockley
machines,
Delgado snap
where you pull the lever, the machines can malfunction.
And the wheels jam.
Yeah, they can make mistakes. That actually did happen, as John
And
mentioned.
we all remember we all learned about Quo Warranto that year.
That's right, where the outcome of a common council election was actually challenged here in White Plains, and it was found that indeed there was a problem with a voting machine, a mechanical problem, not fraud, but these things are being presented as evidence that this election is being rigged. Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama appeared together on the same stage for the first time this past week. It seems that Michelle Obama is a secret weapon of the Hillary Clinton campaign because she is so beloved out there among a large segment of the population. This was at a rally in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. A suspect was arrested this week for vandalizing Donald Trump's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The suspect has been identified.
Is there nothing sacred? Vandalizing the celebrity.
He was identified as a fellow named James Otis. He dressed up in a uniform to look like a city worker, so no one would suspect that he wasn't supposed to be out there with a pickaxe and sledgehammer breaking up the sidewalk.
Sledgehammer.
That just happened to have Donald Trump's star, and the charge that he's facing is felony vandalism.
Felony vandalism? I didn't know there was felony vandalism.
Yeah. The vice presidential candidate Pence was coming to New York last evening for a fundraiser at Trump Tower. The Boeing 737 that he was on skidded off a runway at LaGuardia Airport while landing in rain. There were no injuries, fortunately. There were about 50 people on board, not only Pence and his team, Secret Service, and reporters. And one of the reporters covering Pence on the campaign trail said that they have had a lot of rough landings on this particular chartered plane used by the Pence campaign. The NTSB this morning, this is Friday morning, the event happened last evening. The NTSB is investigating, and we will find out whether it's something as common, fairly common, as hydroplaning, where water builds up on the runway and the tires can't get a grip on the pavement, or whether there's some problem with the flight crew, or whether something else is going on. Fortunately, no injuries, but when you have a vice presidential candidate involved in an airplane accident, which is the way this is classified, that's pretty serious, and it does get a lot of attention.
Yes, could be a president someday, you know?
So once again, since this show is scheduled to run over a 2-week period, we will not see you again before Election Day. Please vote.
Very important. Everybody votes.
This is not a school board or school budget election.
No.
You've got to get out there for this one.
Yes, use your franchise. Now, speaking of using franchise, the Journal News, the Gannett chain, reported that there were 1 million persons awaiting naturalization who are here legally but are trying to become citizens. But it was unclear as to exactly why there is such a delay in processing. So my friend Hezi Eris asked Michael Edelman, the lawyer and strategist, why is there such a delay? And he said to Hezi that neither the applicants nor representatives of the applicants have legal standing to demand faster approval, and that the government can do just so much considering the constraints of the budget with which they function. They have no legal force to impose a deadline by which the applications win final approval by a process, and which is overloaded with applications, all of which are strictly okay. And there's no funding to meet the demands. And the applicants are not yet citizens, they are applicants only. So what has happened is that they are not going to be able to vote in the election because apparently the government failed to add extra people to process them.
Well, you know, we found out this week that here in White Plains, government is doing something to make it the leader
White Plains is now #1 in fines per capita, $150. I haven't seen the actual stats.
In fines?
Fines.
And by fines, that it would include parking tickets?
Parking tickets. And, of course, we have our own parking ticket force. You know, that cities should look at that. Meanwhile...
#1 in New York State in fines.
Amazing. Now, here's please contribute to Haiti relief, and there's the information on the slide right there.
You can just get in touch with the Slater Center here in White Plains.
Yes.
They're collecting, they're putting together a truckload, which I believe was supposed to leave today, actually, the first truckload of supplies.
They need more. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, Peter Katz, good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.